my name is Sycra, and today I'm going to be doing a critique of a picture one of the forum members posted in the critique section of the Sycra.net forums. Okay, so what we have here is like a mage guy, and there's storms in the background. I don't know if he's causing that or if that's just what the weather's like. And he's got this cool hood and some mystical runes going down his sleeve and onto the staff. His robes are kind of flowing in the wind, and he's got a very determined look on his face. So, I mean, that's all cool, but there are some things that could be worked on. Probably the biggest thing is that this image on a whole is kind of boring. I mean, we're looking right at him. He's kind of flat. It's a side view. This arm is coming forward, but we don't really get a sense of this coming forward. You can see he's positioned pretty much like right down the middle of the page. And there's not much contrast. You can see that there's these big gray areas. The sky's kind of dark, and there's this lightning that's kind of bright, but it could be pushed more. And when you look at it from far, it doesn't look very strong, especially because it's in this type of square composition. You also have things like this going on where you have this area of negative space on the side of his staff. And it's just kind of a block. And then here you have this awkward thing where you have the hood and then the staff, and it's so even. It's almost like the hood was designed with this staff in mind, so that you'd get this like perfectly even negative space in here. And I mean, this is kind of interesting, the negative space you have on this side. That's quite cool, how it comes like that. But not much is standing out, and rather than go in here and fix everything, I'd like to maybe do something that I think people just don't do, which is thumbnail. And I think this is something that really might have helped you when you decided to do your image. Now, thumbnailing is something that doesn't take much time, and it's fairly easy, but it's just for some reason people have resistance to it. And actually, I'm guilty of this too, where I know, okay, I probably should thumbnail things out, but for some reason or other, it's just, I don't know, it's easier to, or it seems easier to just start drawing and then flesh things out. But really, you're cheating yourself of making a good image. And also, once you get to coloring, you're going to be spending a lot of time on this image anyway. Might as well do it with something that has a good foundation underneath. So when I look at this image, for instance, okay, we have like a square. Then you got this guy here. Have this staff. And to me, this is the thumbnail of this image. Maybe you can include the clouds, but that's it. The guy holding a staff, and it's a side view. Not much going on. For the perspective, it does kind of look like we're looking up at him. We don't see any ground though, so we don't get a sense of where he is really. how high up he is, or even where his legs go. Let's say his legs could come down like this. Maybe standing here, but we don't know that. So by thumbnailing, we can say, okay, this is an option. Let's say this is option 1. Now the next thing I like to do is have option 1. Now draw a bunch of more boxes, and for me I'd like to just, I don't know, I prefer something more horizontal or more vertical. But I'm just going to draw a bunch of boxes, and the reason why I'm doing this, putting down a bunch of boxes down, is because, let's say I didn't do that. Let's say I just put one box. What I'm tempted to do is just keep working on that one box, and then I'd have like 2 compositions. And then maybe I've worked on that one for too long, maybe like 30 minutes could go on that composition. Then I think, okay, I should do one more, and then I'll do one more, and then I have 3 to choose from, which is still better than 1. Having 3, that's not too bad. But, yeah, it's still not that good, because you only have 3 choices. So, putting down a bunch of boxes makes me work less on one, because I want to get to the next one and see what the next one could be like. So there, I have a bunch of boxes. Next thing I'm going to do is maybe work with a bigger brush. So that way I can do things like this, where I can block in the light and the dark shapes, and it just, again, it's easier to get a sense of what the composition looks like. And you have some lightning, so that's one. Now let's see for the next one. So what I'm going to try this time is he's supposed to, or okay, I'm interpreting that he is supposed to look powerful. And from this view, it's not really coming across that he's that powerful, because we're just looking like a straight side view, right? So something you can do to make someone look more powerful is to be looking up at them more. And you kind of have that, but it's not doing much. So let's say we have a really low horizon. And maybe the horizon's, I don't know, way down there somewhere. Then we have this guy. And we're looking from below, so you can kind of see underneath his hood. And he's holding this staff, and it's really close to the camera. Maybe his head's turning towards us. Or not. Maybe we'll stick with the original, but still that we're looking up at him. Gotta say, I'm not a big fan of what I'm doing right now. But it's just one thumbnail. So let's say that didn't work, but I kind of like the idea of looking up. But he's awfully big. Like, this is kind of a close-up, right? So let's try something else. Let's give him an environment where he's in. So maybe he's standing on a rock or something. And we're still looking up at him because I want that power. Maybe he's holding his spear in front of him, or not spear, sorry, staff. And maybe he's the dark element in this, not the background, so I'll just... because I want him to stand out. So if you have this, you've put some rim lighting, but it's not enough to really pop him off the page. So I would say if you're gonna do that, then probably push it a bit more. You could try something like that, where he's holding his staff. Could still have some of those clouds in the background, lightning and stuff. But again, the whole point of this is just to be experimenting, to try different things, to say, okay, this is one possibility, now let's try other possibilities and see what looks good. And making him so dark could really pop those like glowing rune things on his sleeves and on the staff. And again, try something else. Maybe we're looking at him and he's holding his staff, so holding his staff really close to the camera. And I'm thinking of this kind of like if it was like a scene in a movie. So yeah, it's really close to the camera, and maybe his cape is in the background, just like, or his robes are kind of blowing. So you'd get something like this. You have his hood and his face. You could try a back view. Similar thing, he's holding his staff, but now it's from behind. Kind of just scribbling. Just wanted to move that staff because it wasn't looking good on the page. So, see, I'm just kind of thinking in terms of like silhouettes. Then you could have the lightning in the background here. So it's more like the effect of what he's doing. So let's say this one's 4, this one's 5. Try something else. We could try maybe a crazy perspective where his head's like really small and his body gets big towards the bottom because we're really looking up at him. Just want to adjust that a bit. Just gonna think a bit in terms of the negative shapes. So maybe something like that. Maybe it's hard to see, but I will darken it in and hopefully it will make more sense. So it's his head. He's holding up his staff. And we're really low, so we're really looking up at him. Get tongue-tied. So you could have something like that. Maybe some foreground elements really close to us. Then you'd get the clouds behind here. I put in some perspective. Might make more sense, so we're really looking way up at him like that. Then you could have the lightning coming down. Could have a close-up of his face. Maybe because of the hood he's wearing, that would give you some pretty cool shadows to play with. So you don't really see his expression. And to make it more interesting, I made it so his head's facing this way and his body's facing the other way. So he's kind of holding his staff out in front of him, kind of looking up at him, and you'd get the lightning in the background. And because it's dark, you can really, as with, which one is it? This one? Can really highlight those markings on him. So for instance, in your version here, all this yellow stuff is kind of like the same color as his robe. But let's say, for example, took this yellow and just raise the value way up. You can even go higher than that. And then you lowered the value of the robe. Anyway, you can see that now there's much more variation in what he's wearing. It all gets kind of lost now in the, what do you call it, the background. But you could lighten areas of the background. Just to make him pop out more, and maybe darken areas down here. So now when you look at it, there's much more contrast. And then if you throw in some really bright lightning, then things can pop more. And you could really darken that staff. But anyway, you see here in the values, it's just, this is the, let me zoom in on that. Like, this is how it is with some changes, and this is before. Right? So just playing around with the values a bit. But back to what we're doing with composition. Even things like, okay, you can have one where, okay, he's doing that, he's holding it, and then you could say, well, what if he's holding it in front of him instead? And what if, I don't know, like, I'm thinking that he's casting it, but he wants to, you know, brace himself, because maybe this actually takes some effort to do something. So, like, he's holding it, then his robes are blowing. And I mean, that's not that cool. That doesn't look as cool as I thought. But whatever, right? It's like, what, that took 20 seconds? So it's just giving yourself options to say, okay, what could this image be? So you don't just have to stick with this. And if after doing all of these you decided that, okay, I like number 1, let's say this is number 6, 7, 8, let's go with 9, and yeah, you like number 1 best, well, fine, at least you had more of a choice. But you can see that by experimenting, it really opens up your mind. Like, this view to me is quite interesting. I would like to see more on this. And if you did like something, it's very easy to experiment with it more. So for instance, okay, let's say I decided 1 is the best. Number 1 is just super good. Hate all the rest. Love number 1. So now I have 5 number 1s. And then you could experiment within these. So, okay, maybe he's holding his staff in front of him instead of here. And what would that look like? Because you painted this digitally, so it's like, okay, you're going to use digital, then take advantage of it. There's always these people who are like, well, you know, digital's too easy, and oh, you have undo and you can just do whatever. And it's like, you know what? It's not easy to draw in digital, but it is true that, yeah, you have advantages with all these tools, right? So why not use them? You could have him maybe holding his other arm out. I don't know, you know? But my point is, you just take what you have and then you can make variations on that too. What would happen if the staff is here? What would that do for the composition? See, that's kind of cool because it's breaking up this negative space. And you just don't know unless you try. What if he's using two hands to hold this? What if his body's kind of holding his staff like this? And his body's, he's looking this way, to the left. But his body's straight on. What would that look like? See what I mean? Like, that's cool. It's a different feel. And I just want to do number 9 because it's there. And it's like, work on me. It's so left out. So. Just gonna see what happens if we really just zoomed out. It's more of a wide shot. He's holding his staff. Want to make his body. That sucked, so just gonna try again. Holding his staff. And then you could really play with the background and these compositions are making sense, because I don't know, for me they make sense, but I don't know what it looks like to people who don't do this much, because people who draw a lot, they tend to, especially people who thumbnail a lot, you can look at someone else's thumbnails and you really see what they're doing, and if you don't do it much, it might get confusing. So maybe in this one, this guy's just going completely nuts and there's just lightning everywhere. But anyway, see, now we have 9 choices, and then once we decide on a choice, can take it through more variations. And that took, I mean, this whole critique is like 35 minutes, so it's not that long, and it's really worth it. So I would try that. And again, here's the before and after of your image just for the values. Okay.